Never judge a person by the way they walk through the door, because the quietest guest in the room might be carrying the heaviest story, and the smallest act of kindness might change your life forever. The snow was falling hard over Chicago that night. Inside Romano's grill, the lights were warm, the music soft, and the tables full. Couples leaned close over candles. Businessmen laughed too loudly over steak and wine. Plates clinked. Glasses shimmered. Emma adjusted her apron and checked Table 12's order. She had been on her feet for 9 hours. Her rent was late. Her mother's medical bills were stacked in her bag. She was exhausted, but she still smiled. Because that was who she was. The door opened. A cold wind slipped in first. Then she stepped inside. An elderly woman, thin and slightly bent, wrapped in a faded gray coat that had seen too many winters. Snow clung to her shoes. Her hands trembled as she pushed the door closed behind her. For a moment, conversation slowed. Not because she was loud, but because she didn't belong. At least that's what everyone seemed to think. The hostess hesitated. The manager, Mr. Collins, glanced up from the bar and frowned slightly. "Emma," he called quietly. "Take her. Corner table. Keep it quick." Corner table. The worst table in the restaurant. Right near the drafty window. Emma nodded. She grabbed a clean menu and walked toward the woman. Up close, she noticed the details others had missed. The careful way the woman had brushed her silver hair back. The small pearl earrings. The fragile dignity in her posture. "Good evening, ma'am," Emma said softly. "Welcome in. It's freezing out there. Let me get you somewhere warm." The woman looked up, surprised. Her eyes were pale blue and tired. And Emma led her, not to the corner, but to a small table near the fireplace that had just been cleared. Mr. Collins shot her a sharp look. Emma ignored it. She pulled out the chair and gently helped the woman sit. "Would you like some hot tea while you look at the menu?" Emma asked. The woman hesitated. "I don't have much money," she said quietly. "I was hoping maybe just a bowl of soup, if that's all right." Emma felt something tighten in her chest. "It's more than all right," she said. "Our soup is the best thing on the menu." A man at the next table smirked. "She's not tipping you," he muttered under his breath. Emma heard him. She smiled anyway. She brought the woman a steaming cup of tea, on the house, and knelt slightly so they were eye level. "And I'm really glad you came in tonight." The woman stared at her for a second. Then her lips trembled. "My name is Margaret," she said. Emma took Margaret's order, chicken noodle soup. While waiting, she brought extra crackers and gently broke them into smaller pieces. When the soup arrived, Emma carried it carefully, placing it down as if it were the most important dish in the building. Margaret wrapped her shaking hands around the bowl. For a few seconds, she just breathed in the steam. Then tears began to slide down her cheeks. Emma's heart dropped. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Margaret nodded slowly. "My husband and I," she said, her voice fragile, "used to come here every winter, every year on this day." Emma glanced around. "This day?" she asked gently. Margaret swallowed. Today would have been our 52nd anniversary. The restaurant noise faded in Emma's ears. "He passed away last spring," Margaret continued. "Cancer. Slow, painful." She paused. "We didn't have children. It was always just us." Her fingers tightened around the spoon. "I almost didn't come tonight," she said. "I thought maybe they wouldn't want someone like me, sitting here alone." Emma felt her throat burn. "Someone like you?" she asked. Margaret gave a small, sad smile. "Old, slow, no longer useful." Emma stood there, frozen, because she had heard those words before. Her own mother had said something similar after losing her job at 62. I don't matter anymore. Emma pulled out the empty chair and sat down for a moment, even though she wasn't supposed to. You matter, Emma said firmly. You matter right now. You matter here. Margaret looked at her as if no one had spoken to her that way in years. They talked while Margaret ate. About her husband, Thomas. About the way he always ordered the steak, medium rare. About how he used to hold her hand under the table. About the way he laughed too loud at his own jokes. Emma listened, really listened, not checking her phone, not rushing, not pretending. At one point, Margaret's hand shook so badly, she dropped her spoon. Before anyone else could react, Emma picked it up, replaced it, and gently held Margaret's hand until it steadied. At the bar, Mr. Collins watched with irritation. She's wasting time, he muttered. But Emma didn't care. When Margaret finished her soup, she leaned back slowly. That was perfect, she whispered, just like it used to taste. Emma brought the check. It showed only the soup, not the tea, not the extra bread, not the slice of apple pie Emma had quietly added and insisted she try. Margaret opened her small purse and counted out a few crumpled bills. I'm sorry, she said softly. I wish I could leave more. Emma closed her hand gently over Margaret's. You've given more than enough. Margaret stared at her for a long moment. Then she reached into her purse again and pulled out a small envelope. I brought this tonight, she said. I wasn't sure why, but I think it's for you. Emma blinked. Oh man, you don't have to. Please, Margaret said. Open it later. Emma accepted it politely and helped Margaret stand. As she walked her to the door, several diners avoided eye contact. But Margaret walked taller now. At the entrance, she paused. Emma, she said, her voice stronger than before. Thank you for seeing me. Emma felt her eyes sting. Thank you for coming, she replied. The door closed. The cold rushed in again, and Margaret was gone. The next morning, the restaurant buzzed with unusual energy. A black SUV pulled up outside. Two sharply dressed men stepped inside. Mr. Collins rushed forward nervously. Moments later, the owner of Romano's Grill walked in. Daniel Romano. He rarely visited this location. Everyone straightened. Emma stepped back, confused. Daniel Romano's face was serious. Who served my mother last night? He asked. The room went silent. Collins hesitated. Emma stepped forward. I did, she said. Daniel looked at her carefully. Not angry. Studying her. My mother hasn't left her house in months, he said slowly. Last night was the first time since my father died. Emma's heart pounded. She told me about him, Emma said quietly. Daniel nodded. She told me about you, he replied. The entire staff froze. She said, Daniel continued, his voice thickening slightly, that for the first time since my father passed, she didn't feel invisible. No one spoke. Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded letter. She asked me to give you this personally. Emma's hands trembled as she took it. Inside was a handwritten note, the ink shaky but clear. Emma, last night you didn't serve me soup. You served me dignity. You reminded me that I am still a person, still worthy of warmth, still seen. Thomas used to say that the measure of a life is not what you earn, but what you give. You are rich in the ways that matter. With love, Margaret. Tears blurred Emma's vision. Daniel cleared his throat. My mother also informed me that you refused to charge her for tea and dessert. Emma's face flushed. It wasn't about money, she said quickly. I know, Daniel replied. He looked around the restaurant. For years we've searched for someone who understands what this place is supposed to be. He turned back to Emma. Hospitality is not about plates, it's about people. He took a breath. As of today, you are the new assistant manager of this location. Gasps filled the room. Mr. Collins' face went pale. Emma's knees nearly gave out. I don't. You do, Daniel said gently. Because you see people. He paused. And there's one more thing. He handed her another envelope. Inside was a check, large enough to cover her mother's medical bills. Emma looked up, stunned. My mother insisted, Daniel said softly. She said you gave her something priceless. This is the least we can do. Emma could no longer hold back her tears. But Daniel wasn't finished. She also said something else, he added. Emma swallowed. She said that when she walked into this restaurant, she expected to be treated like a burden. The room was silent. But instead, Daniel said, his voice breaking slightly, one young woman treated her like she still mattered. He looked directly at the staff. Never forget, one moment of kindness can outlive a lifetime of success. That evening, Emma stood by the same fireplace table. The snow fell again outside. She looked at the chair where Margaret had sat. She imagined Thomas across from her. She imagined the 52 winters they had shared. And she understood something deeply. Kindness is not loud. It does not demand applause. It does not calculate return. It simply chooses to see. Young busboy struggled with a heavy tray. Emma walked over and helped him. At the door, an elderly man hesitated before entering. Emma stepped forward before anyone else could. Good evening, she said warmly. We're really glad you're here. Because now she knew. Every person who walks through a door carries an invisible story. Some carry grief. Some carry loneliness. Some carry the quiet fear that they no longer matter. And sometimes, all it takes is a bowl of soup, a warm seat by the fire, and someone who chooses to care. Margaret never came back to the restaurant, but every winter, on that same night, a small bouquet of white roses was delivered to Romano's grill, with a simple card, for the girl who reminded my mother how to smile. And every year, Emma placed those roses by the window. Not as a reminder of promotion, not as proof of reward, but as proof of something greater, that kindness is never wasted. It travels, it echoes, it multiplies. And somewhere, in a quiet home across the city, an elderly woman no longer feels invisible. Night. In a warm restaurant, during a snowstorm. Someone chose to see her. And that changed everything.